What's up guys, this is this Entrepreneur here today with another video. This is about cologne fragrances that we're going to talk about today. So, cologne fragrances. Every time I do a cologne video, about 50% of the comments are saying, oh, okay, nice video, but I don't like that house, or I would never put this garbage on my skin, I don't want to wear imitations. And I kind of don't really say anything about it usually, but today is the day where we touch on all these things and why I tell you cologne fragrances are awesome. Okay, so cologne fragrances, if you don't know, a cologne is basically, the original comes out, it's very expensive generally, and then a second company says, okay, well, we can make almost this for cheaper. The quality goes down an eensy-weensy bit, the price goes down a lot, the quality of the presentation goes down a lot as well, but you get pretty much the same fragrance at a much cheaper price. That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Now, in the fragrance community, we kind of jump into a big debate over cologne fragrances, and I'm going to touch on a couple of the points here, but basically you're either in the camp that you love colognes, you love saving money, you love smelling niche for cheap, or you fall into the category that you think colognes smell too cheap and that you would never ever wear those and they're terrible company, unoriginals, blah blah blah. Those are the two camps you can basically fall into. I personally am in kind of the middle ground, I guess. In my opinion, if you love a fragrance, don't buy the cologne, buy the original, because you will like the original ever so slightly more and it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. If this is a 10 and the cologne is only a 9 to you, buy the 10, man. It's that simple. But if a fragrance is only a 9 to you, but you would still like to smell it from time to time, you still would like to wear it out sometimes, a good example of this for me would be Dior Fève de la Suze. I like the smell. I don't want to smell like it all the time. I got a 5 ml of Gourmand Kiss from Alexandria Fragrances. Does the job. Very, very similar. So today, I'm going to try and convince you why colognes are awesome. Now, I'm going to do this by starting on the arguments that I hear a lot. There are two, pretty much. The first one is, colognes are cheap, I don't want to smell cheap. Okay, I get that. I really, really get that. But here's the thing about smelling cheap, and you could apply this to a cheaper designer fragrance. I know big-time niche heads are going to say, oh, I don't want to smell cheap about Acqua di Gio Profumo, because I've said that. Here's the thing though, most guys do not wear cologne. It's that simple. Most guys don't spray on a fragrance. Most guys don't care about their image that much. The very fact that you're wearing a $30 fragrance, like say Moschino Uomo, or a cologne from Alexandria Fragrances, a cologne from Armaf, that already takes you a step above the average guy. Now, spending more money on cologne? The more you spend, the more people are going to think you're crazy. It's pretty straightforward. There's about a cap from what I found. Once you get over $100 for a bottle, people start thinking you're nuts. And it's understandable. Like I said, most people do not care that much. We do, but 99% of other people do not. So the fact that you're wearing a $300 fragrance from X niche brand versus a $30 cologne from Alexandria or Armaf or whatever doesn't really make a big difference. Nobody's going to notice. Nobody's going to care. If they do notice, maybe somebody comes up to you and they say, what are you wearing? And you're wearing Dior Fève de la Suze. You say, I'm wearing Dior Fève de la Suze. Then they say, how much does that cost? Then you say, costs $300 to $400. Do you know the face people make when they hear how much you paid for a niche fragrance? Now, I mean, should you care what people think if fragrance is your hobby? No. But should you create a snobby element in your character around these niche fragrances where you love to tell people how expensive this perfume was? Also, no. That's silly. And like I said, should you care what people think? For the most part, probably not. If you think you're all baller and you say, oh, I spent $300 on Tom Ford Tuscan leather because I did that, they're going to run the other way, generally, because they think you're crazy. They think you're crazy. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Do you know how many people, would just love to have an extra $300 kicking around? Most of them. Most of them. I wouldn't turn down $300. And the fact is, us as fragheads, we're okay with spending that kind of money on a bottle. Most people aren't. Most people are just like, oh, it's a cologne, I'll go to Sephora, take $100, buy Dior Sauvage, I'll be fine. And you know what? They will be fine. Nobody's gonna say they smell cheap. Nobody's gonna say they smell bad. It just works. So the smelling cheap argument is really foolish outside of the fragrance community. Nobody in the real world is going to care that your cologne is under $100 or it isn't the legitimate 100% original thing. Now, the second argument that I've heard about cologne fragrances and not buying them, I think it's actually pretty valid, but again, there's a little bit of a hole in it too. This argument, I just heard it on a recent video, and the gentleman in the comments said, support the artists. Support the original creators of the fragrance, the original perfumers who came up with this idea. And I respect that. I really do. You know, a lot of thought and a lot of effort goes into the creation of these fragrances that we just buy all willy-nilly. Well, I do think that that's a very good argument. And if that's your reason for not buying cologne fragrances, all power to you. Here's the thing though. You gotta think about after the perfumer creates it, and the brand gets a hold of it and they start doing their marketing campaign. They put it in a pretty bottle, they put it in a pretty box, or some places put them in a pretty case inside a pretty box. I'm thinking of You by Killian. How much are they marking that up? Well, let's take a look. You can look at a cologne fragrance like this one I've got here. This is called Hawaii Volcano by Alexandria Fragrances. Do you know how similar this is to Creed Virgin Island Water? 95%, maybe closer to 99% similar to Virgin Island Water. Do you know how much this costs? For 30 ml, or 35, I'm not even sure. It's about $35 US. Now, if you go to a 30 ml bottle of Creed Virgin Island Water, you can tack on $100 to that. You're going to be paying about $150 for a 30 ml of Creed Virgin Island Water, or you can pay $30 for this 35 ml of Hawaii Volcano that smells almost the exact same. How much is this brand marking up the fragrance you're buying? Quite a bit. That doesn't negate the fact that a gentleman put a lot of his sweat and tears and hard work into this fragrance to put it together. Okay, I get that and I respect that. But the pricing, come on. We're really, for the most part, we're losing money. We're being snookered out of our money here. When you compare these clones at this price to the original at that price, you know, there's a clear markup that's being taken advantage of here. If not supporting the artist is going to affect your sleep at night, you should probably just buy the original and that'll be okay. But if you value not getting swindled out of your money, I don't want to use that word, but it fits, frankly. If you value not getting swindled out of your money and doing what's best for you and your family, unless it's a perfect love for you, I would go for the clone. Think of all that money. Think of all that money that we spend on fragrances, niche fragrances. I probably own about 10 niche fragrances right now. Those 10 niche fragrances are probably about $3,000. Do you know what you can do with $3,000? You could put that into your car. You could put that into your house. You could take your family on a trip. You could go on a crazy, life-changing trip yourself. I did that last year. It was not $3,000, but it was close. It's expensive to travel, man. You could buy a bunch of books. You could go out and you could have money for date nights out for years probably, depending on what you spend it on. You see where I'm going here? That's a lot of money that we spend on this stuff, and that's a lot of money that you could use on other things in your life. You could buy a watch. This is from Original Grain. It's sick. It's not even that expensive. You know how many compliments I've had on this versus how many compliments I've had on my average fragrance? A lot more. You could go out and you could upgrade the crap out of your wardrobe for $3,000. Do you know what you could do with just a smart eye and about a week of time, you could dramatically change your appearance. You could get a 6-year gym membership depending on where you go. Bottom line I'm trying to get across here, guys, is that is a ton of money. And some people, I've accrued these niche fragrances over 3 years, and I think it's still a little bit crazy. People buy 10 niche in a month. 10 niche in a month. Now, that's fragrance addiction at its finest, if you're asking me, and that's a video for another day, which I'd love to make. But think about that. Even if you buy one niche fragrance every month, maybe, I don't have an example of a fragrance, but let's say there's a 9 out of 10 niche fragrance that you'd like to buy. What if there's a clone that's almost the same? If you did that every month and you bought a clone instead of the niche fragrance, you would be saving minimum $1,000 at the end of the year. Minimum. Probably closer to 2, maybe 3. Depending on your spending habits, you know, the numbers are limitless. So I think with clones, the cool thing is you get to still smell pretty much like your favorite niche fragrances, but the price tag is just so much more favorable. I've said it a lot recently, but for most guys, this is not a hobby that's going to bring you the maximal amount of happiness. For me personally, it's not. That's why you may have seen less frequent videos from me or less up-to-date content. It's a sweet hobby that I enjoy, but it's not something that I want to drop all my cash on, and I don't think it's something that most guys should drop all their cash on. Like I said, there's a slim percentage of people in this community that will take legitimate, not validation, they will take legitimate pleasure from this hobby. Like I said, not validation, not an ego high, but they will take legitimate pleasure from collecting and smelling all these fragrances. If you'd like me to do a video on that in the future, I could, but for most of us, we've got other interests. We've got other interests, we've got other priorities, we've got other things in our lives, and we've got other aspirations, dreams, goals, places you want to go, things you want to do. So I think any way you can save money in this hobby, clones, is a good idea. Toning down your spending, period, would be the best idea. But if you can't, you're having a hard time with that, or if you don't want to, straight up, you just want to have all these nice niche fragrances in your collection, I think clones are something you have to look into. Just that price tag, man, it is too hard to ignore. And when you look at the figure of what you're going to save, not to mention the headache you're going to save trying to convince your spouse that you need this new $300 bottle versus you need this new $60 bottle. It's a fifth right there, and that's an extra $240 in your pocket. So when you combine the price, the money saved, the headache saved, the buyer's remorse occasionally saved, I think that clones are an excellent option, and that the arguments against them are really kind of stupid. Just saying. Just my opinion, guys. Take it or leave it. I hope you did take, though, because I think this is really helpful, and I think there's a lot of guys in this community, and girls, frankly, that need a little bit of reminder. I was going to say something a little more violent, but they need a bit of a reminder of just what this is, and maybe they need to go out and try some other things. As fun as this hobby is, there are a number of other activities that are probably going to bring you more happiness than this hobby. So, live your life, man. That's simple. That's it. Live your life. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think about clone fragrances after watching this video? Did I change your mind? If not, I'll do another one. I'll do another one because I think this is an argument that needs to be heard. And save money is the bottom line. Save money. Don't lose your life to this stuff. It's silly. I've got friends that follow me on YouTube who don't understand at all, or they just have between 1 and 5 fragrances, and like they'll say things to me like, oh, what's a niche fragrance? And I'll tell them, and I get into this big rant about what we go on in this community, what goes on, wives leaving their husbands over crazy spending and out of control spending, losing your home. That's insane, and they think it's insane, and they're right. And they're right. The bottom line behind this and every video I ever do where I talk is save your money. Don't let this get out of control. Save your money. And I think clones are a great way to do that. Guys, this has been the Sentrepreneur. If you enjoyed this video and haven't done so already, I'd encourage you to please subscribe down below to my YouTube channel for tons of awesome fragrance content. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up for rants. Don't forget to hit the bell to get notified whenever I come out with a new video. Follow me on Snapchat for scents of the days and other fragrance and life things, etc. My name is down there in the description. Guys, I'm out of breath. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is it. This is how I feel. This is how I think collecting should be done, just from a smart perspective, not out of control and not snobby. And a big part of that is realizing that clones are fragrances too, cheapies are fragrances too, designers are fragrances too, niche are fragrances too, because there's designer snobs too. It's all sense, and if you like it, buy it, but if you can't afford it, don't, or go with the clone. I will see you in the next video. Have an awesome day.